Hey guys, Jay here. So recently I saw a new subwoofer that totally caught my attention. It was one of the coolest subwoofer I have seen in a long time, and that is the REL Classic 99 subwoofer. When I saw this subwoofer, I knew I had to get it in. Now, this subwoofer is from REL, and you will quickly realize that I'm a huge fan of REL subwoofer, and for good reason. They make one of the most musical subwoofer in my opinion to date, but even then, the Classic 99 looks and sounds quite different from the rest of the REL's current lineup of subwoofer. So I'm here to tell you how they're different and how special they are in this video. So a little bit about this new subwoofer. So first of all, the Classic 99 has a 12-inch down-firing paper woofer with very thick surrounds, and it is being powered by a 450 watt Class D amplifier. And it is a bigger brother to their recently released Classic 98 subwoofer, which uses a 10-inch down-firing subwoofer. And this allows this 99 series to go down even deeper than the 98 at -6 dB at 24 Hz, according to REL. And also, it plays about 30% louder than the 98, according to REL as well. And just like the 98, it comes in a walnut veneer cabinetry, but the walnut veneer is so well done here, I have to say that I almost mistook it for a solid walnut construction. Really is spectacular in the build quality, in true REL fashion. And I actually like the aesthetic of the Classic series a lot more than even the REL's current lineup, like the TX series that I compared and reviewed. And I think one of the main reasons that comes down to me for that is because, REL is notoriously known to put their logo on literally everything, the feet, the drivers, the top. Now, there's still a logo on the top of this subwoofer, which is very nice in my opinion, but it's not everywhere. It's still on the legs, but it's very subdued to a point where I can't even film it on the camera to show you. It's just looks like a black feet. So I love the fact that the logos are much more understated on this subwoofer, and I think REL did listen to some of the feedback that you guys gave in the comment section about how the logos were just literally everywhere and stood out too much. But aside from that, on the back, you still get the same control panel as you did on the TX series basically. You get the high level, you get the high level adjustment and the crossover point from 30 Hz to 120 Hz. LFE input for the home theater enthusiast, and also the RCA input for those of you that want to use their preamplifier or sub out instead of connecting it to the high level input. Now the high level input is very important, and I think it's one of the greatest features of REL subwoofers. So if you don't know about it, I suggest you read on that a little bit more. But basically, you connect it just like how you would connect a speaker cable. So you don't need a preamplifier to have an extra set of pre-outs or have a subwoofer output in your preamplifier or integrated amplifier. This allows you great flexibility because a lot of times, integrated amplifiers or preamplifiers even won't have a subwoofer out or extra sets of outputs. And in those situations, you can really integrate a subwoofer like REL much easier using the high level input. However, a word of caution here, how you connect the high level input is different from amplifier to amplifier and the different types of amplifiers. And actually the manual goes over that pretty well. But if you're unsure, make sure to check out with your amplifier manufacturer as well as REL to make sure you're connecting it properly and not damaging anything. But another thing that's really cool about the high-level connection itself is that it's actually being connected to your entire system because you're connecting it on the amplifier. So, this may be a little bit of a hi-fi jargon, so to speak, but REL claims that that actually takes on the tonality of your system to your subwoofer so that it integrates more seamlessly, and I found that to be somewhat true. I personally prefer the high level connection on REL every single time, and that's how I used my REL for this review. Now, REL recommends setting this subwoofer in the corner of the room and start pulling it out and start listening as you pull it out. And honestly, that has worked out very well for my situation. However, one thing that I was a little bit bothered by, and one thing that you should be aware when you're setting up a REL subwoofer, is that it doesn't come with an app like SVS or REL subwoofers do. Instead, everything has to be done manually. So once you set it in the corner or a little bit out of the corner, then you have to go there to the back, look upside down, and adjust this, right? The SPL and the crossover point. And then you have to go back, listen to it, come back, adjust it, go back, listen to it, come back, adjust it, go back, listen to it, and repeat this process over and over again until you have it all dialed in. It took me about over a dozen times going back and forth to dial this subwoofer into my room perfectly. But once you set it, you forget it kind of thing. But to say the least, the process is tedious, and certainly this dial is nice to touch and turn. It's a pleasure, very well made. However, the only indication you get here is 30 Hz and 120 Hz, which doesn't really help you adjust or dial the crossover frequency exactly to where you want it. You can only assume that halfway point is going to be 60 Hz, but everywhere else, you're kind of left to guess where those frequencies are. So I would like to see more indications at the very minimum, even if we don't have an app, so that we know more precisely where we are at within the dial. The other thing is that this little indication, this little dot here, is all you get in terms of that indication, which makes it extremely hard to see, especially in the back, in the corner, where it's recommended to set it up. It's hard to see. The other thing that I don't like is that you only get 0 and 180 degrees of phase adjustment, which is a little bit ridiculous in my opinion, because phase is pretty important when you're dialing in a subwoofer to your room. And with SVS and Arendal, REL's competitors with the subwoofer market, they have infinite adjustment from 0 to 180 in their app. Here, you don't even get 90. You get 0, 180, and that's really it. Which means that this subwoofer is really good for front of the room at 0 degree of phase and 180 for the back of the room. And then, the other side of the room and stuff like that, you really can't use phase as a method to integrate into your room as you can with Arendal and SVS subwoofers. So that's something I really don't like, is you don't get a plethora of options to help you set up like you do with SVS and Arendal's app features. Now getting to the good stuff, the sound quality of this subwoofer is thunderous. It is rich, it is textured, it is musical and nuanced. Vintage REL subwoofer comes to mind. And not just because this subwoofer has that vintage look. No, that's not why. The sound of this subwoofer is immensely different from even the TX series of the current lineup of REL subwoofer. Now, I did a whole video explaining the differences between the TX series and how they can be mashed to different speakers to work well. But those subwoofer, in the grand scheme of things, I think TX series triumphs the Classic series in terms of performance and performance alone. And I'm talking about the tightness, the punchiness, the speed of the subwoofer itself. In that way, I think the TX series is a better choice. So for example, if you have magnepan speakers, if you have a really fast sounding speaker, in general, you would like to go with a TX series because it's a faster, more punchier, more dynamic kind of sound that would marry very well with a faster sounding speaker and keep up with that speed and attack and decay. Whereas the Classic 99 is more of a rumble. It is more of a texture, more of a more room-filling, bodily sensation that makes you feel like every piece of music that you're listening to sounds richer and more textured in the bottom end, but also in the mid-range as well. So if your system sounds a little bit on the thinner side, the REL Classic 99 can really help with that. As you can see, my current system right now with the Platinum speaker has the 2 preamplifier with the AGD monoblocks and my reference turntable setup. And it sounds absolutely glorious even without the REL subwoofer. But ever so slightly, at times I do wish, especially when I play vinyl, I wish that the system sounds slightly more richer and inviting, especially for those long listening hours. And the Classic 99, adding it to this system did wonders. It made the system overall more warmer, richer, again more textured and thunderous sounding. Now at first, I thought the Platimons would be too fast in its attack and decay. The Platimons tend to be a little bit more analytical of a sound, but married with a tube preamplifier and the AGD monoblock, it makes a really good balance between analytical and musical. It's somewhere in between. It never gets bright or shrill, but gives me all the details and nuances. Now, with the addition of the Classic 99, filling in that warmth a little bit in the bottom end, not only do you hear that lower octave, but it's more richer and warmer overall, making the system sound more inviting and richer while retaining all those details from the Platimon itself. And what that did for me was that it allowed me to hear my analog system with more enjoyment and with more musicality. Not that it was lacking in musicality before, but it even enhanced it to a different standard. When I turn off the REL subwoofer, now I feel like I'm missing something. That's how much of a difference that one subwoofer has made to my system. Now again, while it did wonders for my current system, this is not a subwoofer that I would recommend for every system out there. For example, if you have a Magnepan speaker and you value punchy, faster attack and decay in the bass and especially in the mid bass, something like the REL TX series might be a better choice. Also, if you have, for example, a really warm sounding system already, well, the Classic 99 will make that system sound even warmer and richer. And if that's something you want, that's great. But keep in mind that that may be too much of a good thing as well, depending on your taste. So it's not for every system. For my situation, it was a perfect situation because the Platimons, I just wanted it a little bit, was fine with my digital setup, but with my analog setup, I wanted it a little bit more warmer and richer, especially for those poor recordings that I have collected over the years, as well as passed down from my grandfather and mother. And playing those old poorly recorded music definitely helps when you add this subwoofer, adding in that little bit more richness and warmth to mask those imperfections. And that made my enjoyment of my turntable setup immensely improved from before. So while the Classic 99 may not be the most punchiest and the most highest performing subwoofer, to me, it sounded as one of the most musical subwoofers I had in my system. Not to mention, it really brought me back to my first experience of hearing a REL subwoofer, and that was the Stadium and also the Stentor. Now, I heard the Stadium first and then the Stentor a few months later, but that was my first time hearing a REL subwoofer. And really, I remember being floored by it. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, this is what audiophiles mean by a musical subwoofer. Until that point, I didn't know what audiophiles meant by a musical subwoofer. That is when I understood, when I heard the REL Stadium. And the Classic 99 really takes me back to that journey because it really makes me more involved with the music with that richness and texture that I simply cannot just explain. It's not just that it's slightly warmer than the TX series, it has this texture and fullness to it that reminds me a lot of the vintage REL subwoofer experience. The one key thing that I find that the Classic 99 does better though is output and extension. While the Stadium and the Stentor that I have experienced in the past, those vintage subwoofers from REL, were very musical, and I still recommend it if you can find it secondhand to experience for yourself, I found that it wasn't as tight as the Classic 99, and it didn't extend as low, and the output was pretty limited. However, the Classic 99, being a modern take on the vintage REL subwoofer by REL themselves, the Classic 99 has tremendously higher output capability than the previous vintage, REL subwoofers, and it extends lower and it's much more tighter. With this being said, once again, it's not as tight as the TX series, and like I said, if you want a tight sounding bass, punchy, dynamic, fast attack and decay, then the TX series from REL or other subwoofers from Rhythmic or Arendelle may be a better choice. Now, another specific thing that I found with the Classic 99 is that because it's a down-firing subwoofer, it utilizes actually the floor to pressurize the room. And this kind of dispersion pattern of the subwoofer being a down-firing subwoofer is a little bit different from the TX series or other subwoofers like REL subwoofers that has a driver that's facing forward, firing forward. Instead, you don't even see the driver because it's down-firing subwoofer on the Classic 99, but it fills the room nicely, kind of like an open baffle subwoofer, but with a little bit more pressurization and again, that texture that I was talking about that is more extending and grippy and richer than a typical open baffle subwoofer that I have personally experienced. So for me, a Classic 99 is an easy suggestion for those that are looking for a open baffle subwoofer experience, but would like a little bit more richness and warmth and texture than the open baffle subwoofers can provide. I really only have this one subwoofer here, but I can't even imagine what two of them would do. Just one fills this room perfectly, really well, as if I had like two TX subwoofers or more than one subwoofer setup. It blends in and fills the room, pressurizing the room very so well in a way that is not overloading like an open baffle subwoofer, but in such a rich and dynamic way in that lower region. This subwoofer, I feel like it extends even lower than the TX series. So that's another thing. If you have a floor standing speaker and you want to just fill in that lower octave, the Classic 99 might give you that richness that you're looking for in that lower octaves, in the very low octaves of the regions that even your floor standers can't reach. So yeah, that pretty much concludes my experience with the Classic 99 subwoofer. Like I said, it's not going to be for everyone, it's not going to be for every situation or every system, but I described a few scenarios where the Classic 99 can work really well and how it worked really well for my system. And I'm sure there'll be more scenarios where the Classic 99 will fit right in. These are some of the scenarios I found in my limited time with the Classic 99. But having the Classic 99 for the last 2 months or so, I absolutely think that the Classic 99 is best used for those systems that want to add a little bit more warmth and extension. And in that way, I think it does that even better than the TX series from REL. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful and entertaining. And if it was, please click the like button. It helps my channel out greatly and it doesn't cost you anything. And I hope to see you guys on my next journey, on my next video. So make sure to subscribe and I'll see you guys on the next one. Until next time.